Welcome back to the 2 Months Podcast presented by BioSteel and powered by GoGo Sports. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall, and I got my co host with me tonight. We got Phil Stockley. Philly, how's it going, bud?
Doing pretty good. Nice to get back on the pod and pump out some good content for the fans.
Yeah, we've kind of it's been pretty good lately. Having some good interviews and a lot of good feedback from Stoffer, and he gave us a little plug on his show. And yeah, even Trevor Lewis, and then another great guest tonight, too, eh?
Yeah, yeah. Um, Riley Sheahan, really good guest. So,
Yeah.
really curious to see what he has to say.
Yeah,
Go
we're
for
gonna we're gonna this will go down a lot of different roads with him, and obviously he has his own podcast with a friend of ours too, and Tyler
yeah,
Smith, the Speak Your Mind podcast. He's played over 600 games in the NHL. And now he's gone overseas and making a career over there too, and he's got a good history here with playing in the NHL, and then also helping people with mental health and giving a platform for the conversation for mental health too is really inspiring too. And I'm just looking forward to that and getting a little bit more of a conversation because we loved our mental health talks here at the 2 Months Podcast too. And we've had Kelly Rudy and others on, and so it's been pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to this.
yeah, absolutely. No, I just kind of lost my train of thought there when we were talking because, like you said, it's like it could, I don't know what people really know about doing podcasts, and I'm still fairly new to doing podcasts. Like I've only been on for a few months here, but the amount of like work and research and like you want to know what you're talking about when you get these people on. So
Yep.
just like a few minutes ago, just a little bit of like like you just said, like we don't know where this conversation is going to go, what could happen. So yeah,
Yep.
that's basically it. So pretty like looking forward to it. Seems like a really great guy. So looking
Yep.
forward to chatting with him.
For sure. And this is our NHL report sponsored by Sheena Boychuk. And this interview is sponsored by Sheena Boychuk. And after our nice ad read here, we'll throw to our interview with Riley Sheehan. Mets fans, our next guest has a podcast called Speak Your Mind Podcast. He was also drafted in the first round by the Detroit Red Wings in 2010. He's played over 600 games in the NHL and played over 30 games in the playoffs. He's a longtime NHLer, but now he's taken his talents over to the Swiss Hockey League. We like to welcome Riley Sheehan to the podcast. Riley, how's it going?
Good guys, thanks for having me. I always admire people who do podcasting after experiencing it myself. It's a tough gig, so I give you guys some credits and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, for sure. And those are kind of the things we'll jump in first. And I could speak to like how it started for me. I started doing my podcast over my cell phone, so I didn't know what I was doing. And then it took having Ray Ferraro on, probably as anyone would laugh at this, probably not the most tech savvy guy, but he was like, Josh, you got to get on Zoom or something. Like we're doing this thing off the cell phone. Like, what are we doing here? So ever since then, we went on to Zoom, and things have been going pretty good lately. And having you on, but how have you found that balance and the conversations you've taken away from talking about mental health and careers and all the great things that you guys do with Tyler Smith on the Speak Your Mind podcast?
No, it's been good. It's been good. Like we were kind of talking before, the last little bit was challenging being in Switzerland, and I think it was a 8 hour time change for me and Ty, and then factoring in time change of our guests and whatnot. So it was just a little difficult mapping that out. We did it. Sometimes it was tough though. But for me, I always tried to make an effort to do it because just generating conversation um, doesn't matter who the guest is, just the fact that you're talking and you're able to listen to somebody and formulate questions and be curious about someone else's life, I think has been a big takeaway for me. And I think it's a good skill for people to have. And then, I mean, amplifying it is like talking about the subject of mental health and hearing other people's stories and being able to relate to them. A lot of the reasons why we do the Speak Your Mind podcast is because it's therapeutic for ourselves too. So um, it's been so much fun. Ty is unbelievable. We've got to talk to some great guests, and now that I'm back in North America and we're kind of on the same page, we're both excited to put some more energy into it and try to grow it even more.
Nice. That's beautiful. One of the things that I took away from doing a podcast, it's definitely helped me with like public speaking, and I'm in construction. So in talking about mental health in construction has gotten better, but 10 years ago, you could never have those conversations in a lunchroom of 200
Yeah.
people. But has it, obviously it's probably helped Ty because he does a lot of, public speaking. And I don't know how much you do, but has it helped you also maybe be a little bit more vocal in the locker room with your teammates, or in other situations where you maybe are at maybe a golf event, a charity event, that helped you out with the public speaking aspect of just doing this podcast?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not a big, I'm probably just like most people in this world with a fear of speaking in large groups. And even like, even just like groups of people that I'm familiar with, like I'm more of a one-on-one type person, or just having like more intimate setting. Um, but I found bringing these topics to the locker room, like you said, like I would imagine a group of construction men tougher to even talk to than hockey players. Like there's just that masculine feel to that, right?
Yeah.
So, but I just find that like your doors are more open and people recognize that and can come to you. They can approach you with certain topics. And I'm not going to say like I know everything, but
Yeah.
at least I'm open to having the conversation. And I'd like to think that people don't have to be intimidated or worried about bringing up certain subjects with me. And I think that's just a really good perspective to have for most people. If we can all be a little more open and talk about topics that maybe are a little uncomfortable, I think that would make a lot of lives more easy.
100%. I agree with that. And I just in it, and you're right, because the times have spoke up in lunchrooms or board meetings or whatever, in the role I'm in, you know, not people are coming to you right then and there, but later on they're, hey man, something that you talked about hit home for me, and in that. So it is beautiful. You can have those kind of conversations where, and the new friendships that you're going to gain. I wonder where you're at with the mental health, and how you are today with where our society is, and then is there any improvements, and what and some of the great things that you've seen happen too? Maybe touch and go on that and see kind of where your headspace is on the positive things, but things maybe we can do better at too.
Yeah, it's tough because you see so much now, right? Like you see the good and you see the bad, and it can be overwhelming at times with with social media and all the things that we have access to. Um, I try to just focus on what I see in a positive. I mean, there is like the one thing that gets to me is like just younger kids with their lives so influenced by social media or by that social comparison to their peers and things like that, and feeling burnout at such a young age, whether it's involving sport or just life or academics, whatever it is. That's tough because I know what that was like. I had a bit of a problem with that when I went away to Notre Dame. Um, but like the positives, I mean, you see athletes now, you see people now that are taking time for themselves, and they aren't necessarily getting punished for it. It seems like that seems to be changing. I look at like Jonathan Drouin, Carey Price, Simone Biles, all these people that have
Yeah.
hit the headlines about taking a break from their sport to figure out what's important in their life. I think that's really important. Hopefully, we get to a time where um, people are equipped with the tools or they don't feel as much pressure to not be able to perform. I think that would be really cool. But I definitely think we're trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
You see these other countries taking 4-day work weeks and giving more vacation time, just being a little more friendly to people's mental health.
Yeah, for sure. I'll toss it over to Phil. He wants to talk about your career and where things are at there, and the road to your NHL career here.
Yeah, so we had Trevor Lewis on last week, and he's from Salt Lake, and he was just kind of mentioning how in minor hockey for him it wasn't that popular there, and he had like 15 players on his team. He'd be like exhausted every night. I would imagine being from St. Catharines, probably like the hotbed of hockey. There was probably plenty of kids on your teams or wanting to be on your teams. So take us through minor hockey in St. Catharines. How was that?
So my birth year, St. Catharines is a pretty good hockey area. When you look at Niagara, there's different, like St. Catharines is probably the bigger, like the biggest city, but then you have like Niagara Falls, Welland, all these little different cities within Niagara that have some great hockey, like Cal Clutterbuck. I mean, Dan Girardi, Matt Ellis, like Dan Paille. You go back a while, like Marcel Dion, and so it's a big hockey year. My team, my birth year for St. Catharines hockey was awful. We were brutal, like literally probably one of the worst teams in Canada. Um, so it was tough that way, but it also taught me so much. And I give my dad a lot of credit. He never pulled me out and looked to get me on another team. Like we were awful, but 15 minutes down the road was Niagara Falls, and they were the best team in Canada. And there was opportunity for me to go to that team by getting my release or my waiver or fake an address somewhere like some people do now. But he just said, no, like this is your team. Like this is who you've devoted your time with, and you can honor that. And we're not going to take the easy way out, which now is a big lesson, and I think that has stuck with me. So I mean, hockey was hockey. I excelled. I was gifted enough and um, lucky enough to have some talent in it. Um, but I wouldn't say I was trying to like do everything in the summer, like play year round. I like playing other sports. My family just has an athletic background, so it was always a push for me to experiment with different sports. And then just kind of everything sort of fell into place once I reached in like 10th grade or so is when I sort of devoted my time to hockey. But yeah, it was a lot of experimenting with other stuff, just enjoying being a kid, which is a little different now. I feel like it's almost you're pushed into playing year round and things like that. But growing up in St. Catharines playing hockey was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's really awesome you say that. Like we're in the Edmonton area. I live out in rural Alberta, just outside of Edmonton, and my kids play for New Sarepta, which is just like a small little place. And we go through that too with some players that we got to go play in Leduc or we got to go play in the city. And it's like we have one of our development guys out here. He's like, you know what? It doesn't matter where you play, they're gonna find you.
Yeah, yeah. My dad would say the same thing. He's like, if you're good enough, they'll find you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So did was your dad your coach or what was his role in your childhood and
So
hockey?
he was like a trainer. He's got a phys ed background, like a kinesiology background. So he understood the body. So he was on our bench as that trainer. He had his certification to go tend to someone if they needed help. But once we got to an age where parents became a little more vocal about who was making the team and ice time and all that, he's like, I'm out of here because people were going to him about that stuff, and he's like, I'm not in this for that. And so he got out of there like when I was younger. But I mean, he's been my pillar with my hockey career, and then my mom, my sister too. But my dad most notably. But yeah, just a number one fan kind of thing, and definitely an important role in my life.
So then that's awesome. Yeah. Like that's kind of like the similar to what I am with my kids because I can't really skate, so wouldn't be a great coach.
Yeah, he's
But
he's similar. He had a basketball background, so he's more like dialed into to basketball. But I mean, growing up in Canada, I think you're forced to kind of get into hockey a bit, and
Yeah.
luckily it worked out.
exactly. And like the parents versus the kids game, I'm just like, look out because I'm not stopping kids. Like, move it.
Yeah, running over some
But
of them.
oh, exactly, exactly. The coaches are like, buddy, take it easy. I'm like, I can't. Like that's my only speed. But so then yeah, you headed off to Notre Dame. How did that come about?
Yeah, it was so I played junior B in St. Catharines when I was like 15, 16, 16, 17. And then yeah, I committed pretty early, so I kind of always knew that I was going to go there. Um, Being Irish Catholic, there was affiliation with Notre Dame, like the fatherhood and my hometown. Oddly enough, the Holy Cross priests, there was some connection there. So that was kind of another link. And then, funny enough, I have a cousin who now is coaching. He coached the Chicago Wolves last year. We're distant cousins, but he was playing at Notre Dame. So through the recruiting process, it kind of we were like, oh man, like that guy's last name's Sheahan. Like, is there connection? And sure enough, we were related. So there's kind of like some alignment there, and obviously being a pretty cool school and good education, sort of just all fit into one, and that's how I ended up there.
Nice. And some players like I kind of said it in the intro, like, you know, when we interview someone, we do a bit of research and whatnot. So did you play with Kyle Palmieri and Anders Lees there too?
Yeah, so Palms and I were freshmen together, and then he left after his freshman year. Anders came in. I was a sophomore when he was a freshman, so we spent 2 years, 2 years together. Brian Rust was there with me for 2 years. Some other like Stephen Johns. So we had some pretty good teams. We had a lot of talent. TJ Tynan was another stud for us. Um, so yeah, it was good. We had a lot of fun. Super like one of those teams that just meshed really well together off the
Yeah.
ice. So we had a lot of fun. Came up short, Frozen Four 1 year, and then college hockey's tough. Like when it's just one game that can decide something, and there's so many. You get teams that are filled with 24-year-olds that can kind of just outmuscle you. Like it's tough to play and it's great. It's competitive and super. It's a super fun experience, but it's hard.
Phil?
Bosco, you got anything on minor hockey here?
So was there some mentors along the way? Obviously, your father, you talked a bit about him, but any of your coaches that you had, or just maybe someone in the community and or someone at Notre Dame that was just really good to you along the way that kind of taught you the ropes before you were able to get drafted?
Yeah, I played high school hockey in 10th grade, which would have been like the OHL draft year.
Yeah.
And it was the year I committed to Notre Dame before I started playing juniors. My high school hockey coach, his name's Chris Zanudo. He had a stint of professional hockey, played for the London Knights, was a good defenseman. Um, and he was really good for me. Um, Teaching me a lot of hockey related things, letting me play. Like high school hockey was a little lower than like AAA in terms of skill level. So he just let me play and put me in all situations, and just getting on the ice was big for me. And I almost enjoyed that more than minor hockey. And he just like a lot of little things with like just like being on time, like work ethic and practice, like all these little things. Um, it definitely stuck in the back of my mind and was something that I've kind of carried with me. We still talk to this day, and
Yeah.
it's weird because high school hockey isn't really that big of a deal, but the way he treated it was really serious, and he got a lot of players who weren't very good hockey players to play at a high level and have some fun and take it seriously.
That's awesome. It's good to have people like that in your life for sure. So draft day, how exciting was that? Going in the first round and getting drafted by a great organization and the players that you were able to be around in that organization, and Ken Holland to the coaches you had, and how awesome was that, and how important was that for you and your family in that kind of moment?
Yeah, it was amazing. First time ever really like at that age, like I never really gone anywhere cool or done anything like the NHL put up such a great event, and I've never ever experienced something like that. And we were in LA, so right in LA Live where all the lights and everything, and it was just a really eye-opening experience. And then like you said, to be picked by Detroit, um, was crazy. Like I grew up a Leafs fan, but Detroit was always a close second with Stevie Y. And as I got older, just falling in love with Pavel Datsuk and Henrik Zetterberg, guys like that. So to be able to like associate myself with that organization was huge. Um, I remember going into the suite after I got picked, where all the brasses, front office, and whatever. And I walk in, and Babs was the coach, and he didn't even look at me. He looked right past me, went right to my family, right to my mom, my dad, my sister, shook their hands. My sister was she was a rower. She Division I rower at University of Texas. So just sparked conversation about rowing and about that. And I'm just standing there like, what's going on? Like this is supposed to be like my day. Um, and then sure enough, he comes over to me after and he's like, Riley, great to meet you, but I won't have to know you for another like 5 years or something. So like pretty much just putting me in my place, and it was almost a good reminder, like, yeah, you get drafted. Great, good for you. That's a great milestone. Celebrate it. But there's a lot of work to be done after the draft. Um, and you see a lot of players fizzle out, so you got to keep up that work.
Yeah. My buddy Turner Elson ended up playing Grand Rapids too. You know, talk about, you know, going there to start. And that was always the motto with Detroit is, you know, you get drafted and they develop you in the right way. It's you're not rushed. What are the kind of things you learned? And was there any, you know, veterans down there that kind of taught you the ropes to when it was time to make the NHL that you were ready for that moment?
Yeah, for sure. Like, because so I went to Grand Rapids my first year. And even at that level, like they did a great job at bringing in vet players that held strong leadership qualities and were able to keep that culture going. Jeff Hogan was one; he was our captain. Brennan Evans was one. Um, like Nathan Page, Tristan Grant, like those were our older guys, and they definitely like they made it easier and they taught the right things about how to be a good guy in the locker room and cleaning up after yourself, treating the trainers right, treating people right within the organization, which I think is a really important thing. And then once I got up to Detroit, I mean, you could go down the line. Like it was such a good locker room, and guys kind of each guy felt like had their own personality that allowed you to kind of pick and pull from each guy and kind of try to add that into your daily routine. I mean, Nick Cronwell is one of the best teammates I ever had, one of the nicest guys, treats everybody equally, and just a super good character guy. Like Zetterberg, just an absolute like leader. Datsuk didn't talk much, but his work ethic on the ice was unbelievable, and he always wanted to like help you with things and push your game in the right direction and give you a little bit of advice. Like Todd Bertuzzi, an older like grizzled vet, that was like a little intimidating at first, but then you realize like he's just got such a good heart. So you could go down the list. Like it was just a really really good organization for a young player to be in, and I'm grateful I had that opportunity.
Nice. That's awesome. We'll get a little bit more of that, but there's something you brought up there that I've always wanted to ask this because I think trainers play a huge part in, you know, the rest and recovery for you guys. But there's a lot of hard work hours that they put in that maybe not the everyday hockey fan knows. Can you talk about, you know, the relationship and the importance of all the trainers that are in the NHL and you know how special that bond is that you guys have with them?
Yeah, it's honestly it's like it is so important. I'm trying to think of like a better way to put it, but it's so important. One to like they do everything for us. Like they literally do everything. And sometimes like unfortunately there's some guys that think because they're at in the NHL and at that level they can leave their wet dirty towels sitting on the ground and they know someone's going to come pick it up. They leave their practice jersey sitting in their stall. They'll leave their socks sitting in the stall. Shit they'll leave stuff just hanging around and they know it's going to get cleaned up. And these guys all do that and they don't say a peep. They don't complain. They come in late. They a road trip. They'll get into Vancouver late. They'll go right to the arena, unpack all the gear. They do so much that way. And then too, like they're like a shoulder to lean on too when things aren't going right. They're guys that you talk to and things like that. So it's an important role and I'm a big believer too. Like if you treat those guys right, then it can extend your career. If you clean up after yourself, if you aren't leaving shit around the locker room, like it's going to extend your career because those guys take the information back to the brass and the guys who are making important decisions, and they'll be like, "Hey, this guy doesn't have his head on his shoulders. He's talking about the wrong things. He's acting the wrong way. He's not cleaning up after himself." And it's usually a good reflection on how that guy's character is.
Yeah, no, it's important to have that. I always kind of thought that was there, but some of the players I got to know just off record, just the amazing things that they did, you know, were pretty special, and you know the importance that you guys take care of them too. You know,
Yeah,
at the end of the year when the season's over, you know, it's you know, and obviously team dinners or dinners on the road and stuff like that. Those are
for
guys
sure.
too. So you talked about Datsuk, Zetterberg, Pertuzzi, and that, but you got to play in Pittsburgh with some great players, and then here in Edmonton, and you know, even in Buffalo, there's some pretty good players there too. You know, what is something stands out to, you know, those guys? You know, I was with Matt Benning not too long ago, and he just talked about, you know, how humble, how caring, how awesome, you know, Connor McDavid is, and you know the person he is off the ice is is tremendous. And then, you get people that say the same thing about Sid and the other guys too. But is there anything that you learned a lot with them, but, the special bond that you can have with, those guys? But at the end of the day, I think every guy matters. I know those guys are the big guys, but, how they make, everyone feel like they're a part of the team and they're welcome too.
Yeah, I mean, I started with Sid. Like Sid, I said Nick Cronwall was one of the best teammates. Sid might be the best. Like he's aside from how good he is on the ice, which everybody knows. And I mean, I think people hear information about how good of a guy he is, but like being able to sit in the same locker room, I actually got to sit beside him the time I was there, and like he just does everything right from work ethic standpoint. He does everything right. He treats his body the right way. He's in the gym doing the right things. But like you said, like the way he treats people was unbelievable. He'd take time out of his day to make sure he went and signed all the autographs for people watching practice or the guys out in front of the hotel on the road. He would always make sure to get that done. I remember a few times where I had guests in town. Um, a lot of people want to see Sidney Crosby, right? And you're trying to be like, no, it's like he doesn't have time, but he comes up, he initiates the conversation. He can kind of tell that they're like looking at him, and he just takes it upon himself to go out of his way and make sure these people get recognized. And there was a few times where there was kind of some charitable stuff that I had going on where I wasn't sure if I wanted to bother him, but he comes in the locker room with a sign stick for a friend in a wheelchair and has a big conversation with them and continues that. And I didn't even know he was going to do this. Like it was just kind of a random act of kindness, but it seemed like he was always doing that. And he was just so emotionally intelligent, like just able to read the room, able to take guys under his wing and make them feel comfortable. And definitely one of the things that I took from my time in Pittsburgh was how good of a person he was.
That's awesome. Yeah, Gord Miller shares a lot of good stories about him away from the ring too. Phil, you got some there?
Yeah, going back just for a second to Detroit. I don't know, Bosco, do you know who scored the last goal to Joe?
That's our great guest here. And also scored the first goal in Kraken history too. So he's got some good ones.
There you go. Look at this guy go. Hey, what was that night like at the Joe?
Yeah, well, it was tough, man. Like the whole year was brutal for me. Like it always comes with that stat always comes with like 79 games of not scoring, and that year was just super super hard for me. Um, but like I look back on it and like talk about a kick to your ego and have to deal with that and manage the downs of being a professional athlete and getting some media attention and whatnot. And then for that to happen was just like literally I felt like 10 pounds release off, maybe even more, maybe 50 pounds just release off me. I think even in my celebration, you can just kind of see like my head go back like, oh God, thank you for that. Like it was a brutal season. I wish I had 10 more, but to be able to go to get that one. And then I ended up getting one more later on in the game, which ended up being the last goal at the Joe. But it was such a cool environment with obviously the crowd was full, the atmosphere was great. We weren't in a playoff position, but the place was buzzing and there were so many ex players there and Hall of Fame players there, and they did it up well. So that part was really cool.
Yeah. Is there, I know, and it's that moment was tough in that for that year for you. And, but is there something that maybe you've learned about yourself that, helped you, in life or in hockey going forward? I know at times listening to your podcast, some people refer to the NHL as the never happy league and stuff like that. There's, and in life in general, it can be tough. Like I went through a pretty tough time around this time last year, and it really hurts when you don't have a year that you're really excited about, especially when you feel like things are at the top of the mountain. But is there something that kind of stood out to you through that moment that you learned a lot? And obviously it was a beautiful kind of ending in a way, but through that moment and the mental health kind of challenge that we have in life too. But is there something that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I took a lot from it. From a hockey standpoint, like it allowed me to kind of to go on and just think about my career and realize that it couldn't really get much worse, like at the NHL level. And just having that in the back of my mind made other situations a little easier. It's always tough when you're going through it, but to be able to reflect and kind of look through your career, I think like to know that that was there and that happened, but you're still surviving, I think was a good thing for me to remember. And I was able to bounce back the next year and get traded and have a really good year in Pittsburgh. And um, it's also a good reminder for me that like things can change, and a year isn't a long time. Like not even a year. It was a end of the season to the next season. So like say 5, 6 months, all of a sudden things change and I'm in a really good situation again. So um, it's kind of taught me that sort of day by day mentality, where just because I feel shitty today doesn't mean I'm going to wake up tomorrow. And and it's also too like you got to work for it, right? It's not just, I think like the one thing people think is like happiness, especially as you get older when you've been affected by so many different things. Like happiness doesn't come by easy. Like it's something you got to work for, and you got to do things that you enjoy, and you got to surround yourself with people you enjoy being around. And definitely like those lessons, it's something that I've taken from not just that moment, but some of the downfalls that I've had over my career.
Yeah. My mentor, his name's Brian Betty. He works for a company called JMJ, and he's out of Vegas. And one of the things he always says, press play. And just press play on the whatever happens. Just keep press and play. And that's what gets me through the day. I know kind of earlier we're kind of just off before we started the podcast is just that face side of always believing in something, and I definitely think that's important. And talking to like Matt Benning, where when he went to Nashville and then San Jose, like they got a chapel set up for the guys, and it's not for everyone, but it's always nice to have that conversation. And I know Phil and I play on a rec hockey team here, and times you're like you get mad and you want to do something in a hockey game, you're like, that's not a good Christian or whatever. But we're always kind of have a good joke, or if someone does something bad with our team, we always say you got to throw it in the swear jar, there's a buck. So but it's always pretty funny there. But I just think that positive approach is pretty cool. And like my story and my kind of testimony in a way is I lost my father when I was 14, and and I didn't know how to kind of cope with that. I've had so much up and downs, but it took an NHL player to kind of help me out, because he had a similar story, and in Travis Hamonic and kind of what he does with his charitable initiatives and stuff like that. But I just want to talk about like what charities are near and dear to your heart before we kind of get into you just making the decision to go overseas. Is there something that kind of sticks out to you, and what charities you've been tied with in the start of your career, and where things at with now with that?
So I always kind of made it a focal point when I was playing. Like when I was in Detroit, I did I did some stuff with Humane Society. I love dogs. I love like the rescue thing. Like that was really appealing to me, and it was one that nobody really had done within the team. That the team does a really good job at setting players up. So every player had to do some sort of initiative, and that's where mine was dogs. But then as I got kind of older and a little more focused into it, Luke Glendenning and I did a little bit of a meet and greet after each game with Boys and Girls Club with a kid who maybe doesn't have the ability to go to a game and the ability um, to have the freedom in their upbringing to do kind of some things that maybe you or me were blessed to do. So they would come down and we would just talk. They'd come to the game. We'd give them a little care package. We continued that on in Pittsburgh. Um, I did it with Brian Rust, where we would buy tickets. Same thing, Boys and Girls Club. I think Rusty has continued that on now without me, but now he does with kids who stutter. Because Rusty he's had he does have a speech impediment, and it's something he deals with, so he understands the challenges of that. And then when I got to Edmonton, we did like a Sheahan squad kind of thing, same sort of thing. It was tough with COVID, but just like a meet and greet with younger kids. And I'm really drawn to that, to the younger kids crowd, where you can maybe have a little bit of a positive effect and give them a spark, give them some sort of spark in their brain where they can see that becoming a professional athlete is possible. The grasp is there, and if you don't achieve it, then you can learn all these things along the way. So it's something that I'd like to kind of focus in on as my hockey career kind of settles down, as being a little more active in that kind of community and maybe create my own sort of foundation or whatever it is. But definitely younger kids who are going through a lot, focusing on their mental health and maybe giving them some tools to fight through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even your guys' interview with Ron McLean, and he was on our podcast probably a week before he's on with you guys. And I know with him being in the Red Deer area and from there, you know, and our a charity that we support here in our podcast is the Central Alberta Child Advocacy Center. And obviously a former teammate of yours, Chris Russell, who is that's a program that's near and dear to him and his wife's heart. But yeah, I just remember we always donate our tickets, but usually we don't hear the stories back that happen. And we got a beautiful story back during the tickets that got donated when the Capitals were in town, and the two kids that went to that game, that how much that impacted them. And you know, it's a great thing that you're doing there too. And you know, I hope going forward, you know, things are a lot more success than that, and you know, keep helping out, because I think giving back is important. And making sure everyone knows that they're enough in this world, because I think that's, you know, oftentimes is sometimes we all think that maybe we're not enough, but we always
Mm-hmm.
are. So
Yeah.
great
I
on.
also think too, just by doing that stuff, like you can look at it from like a selfish standpoint where it helps you to give back to other people too, you know, like you feel better about yourself and it kind of gives you a little bit of energy. And I think I love that. Like when I see guys around the NHL doing certain things, like as much as they're helping and they're influencing somebody, it's also helping themselves and building little pieces of their personality and their experience playing in the NHL. Like it provides them with a little spark. I always found it helped me play better too, because I was a little more clear in the head.
Yeah, no, it's even like Travis Hamonic said to me, he's like, in a weird selfish way, this stuff helps him. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in a way where he knows he's helping someone else on the other end, but in a weird selfish way, he's helping them. And when he said that to me, I was like, yeah, that resonates for sure. You know, a couple more before we let you go, but obviously, you know, the decision to kind of go play overseas in the middle of the of kind of the early part of the NHL season. I know you kind of talked about it, and I kind of know what you said on your podcast, but for some of the listeners that didn't catch that, you know, how hard was that decision, or how easy was that decision? And then once you got there, you know, how awesome was that when you finally got there, and you know, and playing good league and getting connected with another former teammate in Gaetan Haas, that you had here in Edmonton too. But how awesome was that?
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. It was tough. Um, it was the first year I signed a two-way deal in Buffalo, and I maybe didn't consider like how difficult it is to go up and down and the pain of getting waived and then going down and playing, then getting called back up, thinking maybe you're going to get another chance, then not playing and being away from family and that stuff. So that was difficult. And I mean, I give Buffalo so much credit. Like I loved my time there during the COVID year, my time there um, from the guys like in the locker room, the coaches, everybody there, they were unreal. And Kevin Adams was unreal when I approached him and I was like, hey, like this really isn't working for me. Like I'm just not mentally, I'm not in a good spot. I feel like I'm letting my family down by being away all the time and not having energy when I'm at home. And he was super understanding and he worked with me through the process. He gave me some more time to really think about it. And then we came up with a decision to terminate my deal, which allowed me to go over to Switzerland. So I got to have kind words for him. And then getting to Switzerland, it was great. I mean, we it's a nice lifestyle out there. It's an easier schedule. Travel's not as bad. It was a little difficult settling in and getting hockey going and getting the family settled and things like that. That's never easy. But once we were settled, it was good. And we ended up losing Game 7 of the finals, and it was tough for me because I was kind of in and out of the lineup with the import rule and stuff like that, and being a late addition. So it allowed me to kind of work on some things and that like I had to sort of same thing, like fighting with my ego, like I should be playing, I should be in the lineup. This is crazy. I come over from the NHL, like blah blah blah. But we had a really good team, and I just had to work on being a good teammate, helping as much as I can, and in whatever way. So it was a challenge that way, but all in all, a good experience.
Is that something you want to do next year, or are you where are things at with you and your wife and the family decision? Because obviously you, I feel like you probably got a lot left to give still. I don't think you want to retire now, but where are things at there?
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely it's a topic of conversation that comes up a lot for my wife and I, and trying to find something that we enjoy, and something where like I can put some energy into and feel good about it. So we're not really sure about what we're going to do. We've talked about going back. We've talked about staying in North America. We've even talked about like what it would look like if I didn't play. And so it's just a matter of really sitting with it and finding out what works for us as a family, and what I would wake up happy to do, and really be able to like put some energy into.
Phil, you got some more there before we close out?
Yeah, so I had a friend who ended up going and playing in Italy, pro hockey in Italy, and he just said it was so much simpler in a way. You get up in the morning and you stop at the cafe on your way to the rink and grab a nice coffee and then make your way to the rink. So what's it look like in Switzerland, a typical day playing pro hockey in Switzerland?
Yeah, it's similar. It's I'm trying to think of the right way to put it, like comparing it to North America. I mean, Canada definitely has similar, like some similarities to Swiss. USA not so much, but it's just like a very intimate, um like people kind of just respect your space, and um it's just like you walk in the morning, guys go out of their way to say good morning to everyone. It's like they look at you and they say like good morning. How is your night? Like, which is a little different than when you're in the NHL. Like it seems like there's like a little bit of like a narrow mindedness about how do I get myself ready for today? How do I push my career? How do I be the best player I can be? There, it just seems like there's a little bit less of a care for that. I mean, the NHL is the best league in the world, and guys are pushing themselves to be the best players they can be every day, which is a big reason why. There, it's just like a little more of like I think it's like a cultural thing. Like, let's go have our coffee, sit in the lounge, bring some croissants, have a cake,
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
on the NHL highlights, and you walk in and everyone's just sitting in there just shooting the shit, and like it's just a super laid back environment, which was really eye opening and good for me to see.
Nice. Phil,
Like,
you have more there?
yeah, so like I know we kind of blew past a couple of things. Like, you had your stint in Edmonton too. Um, what was that year like playing here in Edmonton?
It was great. I mean, um, like Kenny
Like, you got to
Holland did.
play with Connor McDavid, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, like even seeing Connor when I played with him was obviously unbelievable. Like you don't think he could get any better, and then you watch him
right.
as he gets, and Leon's the same way. Um, you watch him this year, it was just crazy, and like guys are like looking at me like, what's wrong with, like, how does this guy do this? Like this, it's crazy. Like it just to see that is absolutely insane. I never thought someone could put points up like that, like in the NHL. Like that's like a thing you do in minor hockey or something. And so seeing that, like you said about Benny's words about him, like he's so humble and he's such a good teammate and down to earth guy. So that was cool to get to see. And um, just the passion for hockey in Edmonton. Edmonton was definitely different than the cities that I'd played in. I'd never played in a Canadian city before, and the passion for hockey, as big as a hockey city Detroit and Pittsburgh are, um, Edmonton seemed to trump those two pretty easily, and just the passion for hockey there was really cool. Um, so yeah, it was a good experience. Harsh winters,
Yes.
but but everything I enjoyed everything a ton.
Yeah.
You get used to him, man. But yeah, I'm a Flames fan, so it drives me nuts watching Connor how he rolls. It just drives me
Yeah,
absolutely nuts. And then you got
I would
Leon
like.
on top of that too. So
Yeah, and they're such different players, right? Like
yeah,
Leon's going back to his own end with the puck. Connor's coming at you full speed, and then all of a sudden, Leon's throwing a backhand saucer pass cross ice that lands right on his stick, and it's like, hey, how am I supposed to stop that?
Yeah.
But I would like to see them win. I hope they figure out, like, I don't know what it is to see them kind of push to that next level. It kind of seems like the Leafs are in the same sort of boat. where they need to
Mm-hmm.
get over that hump and pull out the big games. But it's tough. It's such a tough league. Like every team is so close. You look like I wouldn't have ever thought like Vegas and Florida would be
No.
playing in the Stanley Cup right now. So it's
Yeah,
just
no doubt, eh?
it's a weird league. So
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, just even like Bosco saying it earlier, like just going through the list of players that you've been able to play with, that's got to be pretty special. Like going back to like Datsu, Crosby, Connor McDavid, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg, right? So,
yeah. Yeah. And I think like at the end of the day, like one thing that I pull from it is like as good as these players are, and I think it's good for people to remember that like if, for me, as good as some of the players are, like they're still humans. Like
Yeah.
they
right.
might, it doesn't mean that they're going to be someone that you get along with or that someone that you like respect, and I think that's a good thing for people to understand. They don't have to follow in someone's footsteps just because they are successful at what they do. It's like I don't want to follow in the footsteps of some actor who's known to be, like
Sure.
getting in trouble with and doing some negative things in the media and what, even though I really enjoy the movies that like when he's on film and stuff, like it's just
Mm-hmm.
even like you look at like your bosses and people like that, like sometimes like somebody doesn't, you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to admire how the person is as a person if they're really good at what they do.
Yeah, 100%. Speak up about one great person, and we had him on, and that's your co-host. We'll finish up on this. Save the best for last, Tyler Smith, and I think he just turned 25 here. So, the kind of relationship, friendship that you guys have built here, and what are the amazing things that you see in day out when you're around him, having a conversation with them.
Oh man, like so he came on the podcast when it first started as a guest, and we just hit it off right away. The conversation just went so smooth, and then we talked about maybe like just asking him if he'd want to be a co-host, and that's kind of how it came about. And then like over time, I just see like he's just such a good person. Like he's so like puts other people before him. Like he went through such a traumatic thing.
Yeah,
All those players did, and to be able to like flip it into something positive and to be able to like try to relate to other people and make other people feel better about their situation. It just speaks so much about his character. And then we have so much in common. Like we love shoes, we love music, love sports, like golf, like just conversations just flow so easily for us. We laugh a lot. Like he loves to banter and so do I. So it's just been able to grow since that first podcast episode. And like I said, now that we have some more time to focus in on our podcast, I hope I can see him in person a little more and come up with some new material so we can get excited about this stuff.
yeah. No, you guys do an amazing job, and I think having podcasts out there like that are awesome. We've had like Kelly Rudy on quite a few times with us, and it's just trying to have that conversation on mental health. And when you had Ron on, every guest you have, it's tough because it's like asking what your favorite kid is when you love all your kids. It's like every guest brings something different, but brings something so great too. And that's what I love about doing this is, our, like Matt Benning always says, like, we're just shining the light on you guys. You know, it's tough to make the National Hockey League. And when you're there, it's always a grind. And, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done, on and off the ice. And, I appreciate you, taking the time to join us here, and happy we finally were able to get a time here to connect. And so thank you so much. And Phil, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add before we close out.
Yeah, Tyler's a smart guy. Jumped in after all the all the trials and error that you probably went through with your podcast. Very similar to me. I just let
Yeah,
Bosco grow this thing up, and then I just slid right in there. So
just ride
pretty
the
smart
coattails.
guy.
Yeah,
Exactly. Hey, I'm not. I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not ashamed to say it. Yeah, for sure. So, man, thank you so much for the time tonight, man.
yeah. No, thank you guys, and keep doing what you're doing because this is great. And yeah, just conversation and asking good questions and stuff like that. Even Sometimes if you don't get the return you want to, I think just like keep it charging through. And
Yeah.
I think it's great what you guys are doing. Like I said, podcasting isn't an easy gig, and you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Thanks.
same back to you, obviously. And we hope to see you back in the ice here very soon. And, don't, you got a lot left to give, man. So keep on going and keep on trucking. So all the best.
Thank you.
Well, Phil, that was a pretty good interview. No, I thought that was amazing. So a good 45 minutes with Riley here, and kind of your takeaways from what we experienced, and just a great conversation on a lot of different topics.
Yeah, and it's like I kind of touched on it, and apologies to any Mets fans out there, but like I said in the before the interview, conversation just starts flowing, and we may have missed a couple of things, but we'll get him back on and go over maybe more time in Edmonton and
Yeah,
some of his other stops. Like we didn't even touch Seattle or Buffalo really, but conversation just flows, and it's the way it goes. And when you're on a time constraint with people, it's you just kind of go with what feels good at the time. And I just thought it was a really good interview, and again, just really appreciate his time. And yeah, like I said, we could have spoken for probably another hour.
100%. There was, I was. It's like you're stick handling in front of the net, and you're like, "Hey, do you go this way or do you go this way?" And then I'm just like, this conversation's flowing this way, and then and then get you back on and into it and stuff like that. Because sometimes, that's my apologies. I get so deep into the conversation, I forget that I got another great co-host with me too that is there. So getting you back
It's
in
all
and
right, buddy.
pick. But it's good though because you pick up
Yeah,
things that maybe I'm not picking up on, right? And and I think it's just that's the chemistry we have where you're pressing play on that conversation. And yeah, every time we have a guest on for the first time, it's always just like, well, we didn't get enough of that, so we get them back on again. And if anyone sees our history in what we've done, it's trying to get someone back on again for more of a conversation. And and this one hits home a lot in a lot of different ways. And what Riley's doing, helping kids out with their mental health, and putting smile on their faces. Like I just love that because we
yeah,
all those kids need it. And there's a lot of things going on in this world, man. And if you could put a smile on someone's face, and even if it's an adult, it's quite amazing what that does for you and your confidence going forward in life. And yeah, I'm just thrilled to finally get him on. It's been a few conversations back and forth, and now he's back overseas, and I hope he plays, man. He's still young. He's only 31 or so, so it's I know things are at where they were at earlier on in his career, and but I think he could still help an NHL team here. And I hope he gets another knock on the door here. And the good thing, like one of the great things is he's one of the best face-off guys in the game. And and that is always a very huge need in this game, and playing on the penalty kill too. So hopefully another team gives him a chance here. And but it's obviously a family decision there. But any other things that kind of stood out to you?
yeah, and even like he said in the interview, like doing a podcast is good for his mental health,
Yeah.
and I know that's a really important thing to you too, because you and him probably share some of the same struggles. And I've been fortunate enough that my mental health has been pretty good in my life. So it's just, but at the same time, like we all have our up days, we all have our down days. And coming on and doing this podcast and getting to interview some like really great people. And
Mm.
to think like even a year ago that I'd be having conversations with NHL players, like not a chance. And it's like you guys said, it's good for your mental health. So if I can even encourage anybody listening right now, like just find something you love and just go and do it, because it really helps. And it helps me even, and I know it helps you. And
Oh yeah.
even it's great even like the relationship we have with like the boys on the podcast, like Broads and Vandy and Rupper too when he gets on. Like it's good. And we had our round table a couple of weeks, was it a couple of weeks ago, a week ago,
Yeah.
last week, right? And even just like after that, like we were all just like so happy with how it went, and it was just a lot of fun, like talking with the boys and getting on here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I even said the other day, just like lining up the interview with Stoff and just like, I've known him for 15 plus years and just I'm just privileged and honored and I just love having that friendship with him and being able to have
right,
that conversation. And it's like you say, not everyone gets these opportunities in life, and every day we're connecting with a new player and and building a new relationship and a new friendship and just having more positive conversations. And like Spin Chicklets does their thing, Miss and Curfew does their things. Those guys are good, and and Speak Your Mind is doing amazing things with with the platform that they have and the conversations they have and the guests that are a part of those great conversations in life. And man, like keep a podcast under an hour. If you're driving half an hour this way and half an hour back the other way, throughout the week, like you can still find
we'll
time.
keep you company. Yeah,
Yeah, I know there's a lot out there, and we're growing and growing, but man, it's therapeutic for me, man. Like I love these. Like I look forward to them. If I can do these every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I do it, man. And look at the email we got tonight. It's gonna be great for us down in a few days here, in a few weeks, probably. Like that, like that. We worked so hard for that, and the support that
yeah.
we're getting from Go Go Sports with Robert and the other Robert and Trevor, and like they're pushing the envelope to getting us better. And I I always wanted that. Now we got it. Now they're there. They're helping us, and being a part of the Go Go family, and it's amazing. And and I just
It was a big turning point for us for sure.
yeah, 100%.
Joining up with those guys, and
Yeah,
I don't know much about like what the Mutts fans know, but we'd had another opportunity before Go Go came along, and it just didn't feel right. So
mm-hmm.
we waited, and we talk about being like Bosco and I, we believe in God, and we have faith in the Lord, and
Yeah,
we just really believe, like we both felt the same way, that I don't think that was the direction we were supposed to go in. And was it like a week or two later, Go came around, and
yeah,
boom.
yeah. There's a
So
possibility there, and it just felt right, and it helped that we had, obviously Darren Dreger and Ray Ferraro backing us and,
mhm.
supporting us. And then, again, like, Stoffer giving us a shout out on a top 5 radio show in Canada, probably in the entire hockey league. And, just like how great was that? Just a nice little plug and, interesting guys, interesting conversations and stuff like that. And then
Yeah,
what was he crushing during that pod? He was just crushing a nice
he
drink.
had like he had the bubblegum Jones soda going, looked pretty
Yes,
tasty
yes.
actually.
I went to the store that night. I was like, find one. So I'm gonna find where they get some.
Anyways, yeah, so here we are going down another path, right? And it's just so easy to do. But all in all, like it's like Riley said tonight, even like these amazing hockey players,
Yeah,
Connor McDavid, Pavel Datsuk, Sidney Crosby,
yeah,
they're just normal guys.
yeah. Just
And
normal
and
human beings, right? So for sure. So all right. Yeah, so I think we'll finish up on that, Phil?
good night. It was a good night. So
Yes, it was. So looking forward to hearing the feedback on this episode. Definitely means a lot. So as we always say, be humble, be kind, and we'll chat with you guys very soon.